the Christos, Jesus, are all believed to be here. The Ark of the Covenant, you name it. It's all packed into the vault at this place here in Scotland. William Sinclair was a pretty clever guy. After they had spent many years building Rosslyn Chapel, he came in and he had this installed at the very center of the chapel. It's an arrow pointing down. Now, if you read books like The Hiram Key by Chris Knight, Bob Lomas, they say that when you go into Rosslyn Chapel and you're there in the center, here's this cluster of, or this arrow pointing down. And what it points to is an X marks the spot location. You dig up the slabs of the floor there, you're going to find the scrolls of the Nazarene, the lost teachings of Jesus. You might find the Ark of the Covenant. And they're right now trying to get a license so that they can dig that place up. Well, I had an opportunity to talk with Bob Knight, or Chris Knight, and Bob Lomas in London one time a few years ago, and I went up to him and I said, hey, you know, what do you make about the cluster of grapes at the tip of that arrow? And the response was, what cluster of grapes? That cluster of grapes right there. Right down there at the very tip of the arrow is a cluster of grapes. And the question is, why did William Sinclair put the cluster of grapes there? They call that point right there the jewel of the ark, or the arch. And I'm going to submit to you that he knew the secrets of the stargates or wormholes. He says, and this is coming from Freemasonry, that if you can comprehend these things, thou knowest enough. What they're talking about is the cluster of grapes, not what's buried underneath the slabs at Rosslyn Chapel, but if you can comprehend these things, the cluster of grapes, you know enough. In fact, it opens up a vault of considerable magnitude. And the vault, they ask us to believe, is actually a vault that holds the Ark of the Covenant or holds, again, those Nazarene scrolls. I'm not so sure. I think the vault of great magnitude is the secrets of the stargates or wormholes. That perhaps underneath in the labyrinthine tunnels of Rosslyn Chapel you will find some form of a lab that's connected with the Anunnaki, because that's the ultimate connection that both the Templars, the Freemasons, and all the Grail mysteries point to, is the Stargate secrets of the Anunnaki. There's a great anecdotal story that involves Alexander the Great. Did you know that he was deeply interested in these mysteries? Yeah, he had been told by the Oracle of Delphi that, yeah, sure, you're going to conquer the world, bud, but you're going to be dead within a few years, so you won't enjoy it anyway. And this led Alexander the Great on a quest for the secrets of immortality. He went into Solomon's temple. He went to Egypt, became a pharaoh, became a sun god. He was on his way to India. And along the way, he finds this ladder. He goes up the ladder and finds himself in the presence of a being called the Green Man. The Green Man looks at Alexander the Great and says, hey, what the hell are you doing here? Get out of here. And Alexander says, I'm not leaving until you tell me something you've never told anyone else before. And the Green Man is lying on his couch and he's tremendously irritated. And the reason I'm telling you this is because Rosslyn Chapel is loaded with thousands of images of the Green Man. And so the Green Man looks at Alexander the Great and says, fine. And he hands up a cluster of grapes. Alexander takes that cluster of grapes, comes back down the ladder, and starts feeding his troops. Each time one member of his troops grabs a grape, another one replaces it instantly. Wow! What kind of secret is that? Ultimately, Alexander prized those cluster of grapes up until his moment of his death. Well, they call it his death. They haven't actually found Alexander's tomb. He's supposed to have died in Babylon, but nobody knows where his tomb is or what actually happened to the guy. Quite conceivable, if you follow the romantic aspect of this story, that Alexander found the Stargate to heaven and he's out of here. He's out here somewhere, roaming around the hundreds of billions of galaxies similar to our own that we know inhabit our known universe. This is a phenomenal picture from the Hubble Space Telescope. And what it shows is literally each of these bright lights here, those are galaxies. And each of these galaxies, similar to our own, has hundreds of millions of stars in it, with millions upon millions of planets within each of those galaxies. And to paraphrase Sagan, how many of these are inhabited? Nobody really knows. it's conceivable that there are literally hundreds upon hundreds of millions of inhabited worlds out there. This, they tell us, is the farthest that the Hubble Space Telescope can see. And by the way, the Hubble is such a fascinating aspect of our current search for the secrets of God, because when you break down the word Hubble, you end up with HU, which means God, and the element BBLE of Hubble is similar to Babel, which means gate. And by this interpretation, the Hubble Space Telescope is our gate to God. And what has the Hubble Space Telescope shown us? Boom. We're welcomed back into, or right on the edge of stepping through the gateway into the universe once again. See these little flashes back here, these blue flashes? Those are the farthest galaxies that the Hubble Space Telescope can see. And in a sense, the blue apples are sort of like that cluster of grapes that the green man held up to Alexander the Great. If we can seize them, if we can keep reaching out for them, we will improve ourselves as beings, and it will take us into our final frontier. And that, in part, is what the blue apples represent, is the final frontier for humanity. It's the next step. And so when the goddess here is shown with her 3 blue apples in hands, she possesses a tremendously powerful science and technology that can transform the human being in an instant. She's actually modeled after the goddess Mari, or Ishtara, as she's also called. This is from the Temple of Mari from 1800 BC. This statue is actually at the Museum of Aleppo in Syria right now, and it functioned as a water fountain. But that's not what it really is. She's got all her accoutrements on, and she's holding her grail cup right here out of which the water was to spout. This is Walter André and the group of French archaeologists that actually discovered this just incredible statue in Syria in 1934. Here's another representation of the same goddess. She's got her similar outfits. In the Descent of Inanna, we're told that she placed the shigura on her head. She arranged the dark locks of hair across her forehead. She tied the small blue stones around her neck. She let the double strand in that planetoid. And Ea came here to create this vehicle right here in order to lift those souls out of the earth so that they could return home. Our human body is literally our ladder to God. It is, in a sense, the Stargate. And learning how to understand the mysteries of this body and to kickstart this resurrection machine, transforming it into a flower of the soul or a flower of light, is the purpose of earth life. We are given a little bit of a cluster of grapes dangling in front of us by this statement here, that into the blood of a second advanced human called the Ari or the Ili, Ea put sacred knowledge. This comes from perhaps a mistranslation of the word sapur, which they translate as sapphire in the ancient text, but it may actually mean holy blood. And there is something in the holy blood. Now, there's a little bit of a trap that people follow into, because if he called these beings the Ari or the Ili, the Illumined ones, this sounds like some kind of a master race theory. But that's totally incorrect in my opinion, because I believe that when they're referring to the original Ari or Aryan race, they're not talking about a single bloodline. They're talking about a medical condition that anyone can achieve. Aryan or Aryan is a Sanskrit word meaning noble. The noble ones were called the noble ones, or the nobili. The term Aryan, of course, has been widely misinterpreted, and the root is the misunderstanding and the notion that Aryan refers to a race. Instead, as I said, it is a quality of blood that anyone can achieve. It is enlightenment. It's learning to bring the blue stones that cause enlightenment into our own being, thereby transforming ourselves into a noble one, or an Ari, an Ili, an illumined one, an Illuminati. According to the stories, Ea separated the enlightened humans from the others, taking them to an island home called Poseidon or Atlantis, of which he was the founder, and called Poseidon or Patara, the father. He is the Poteidon, the Lord of Wisdom. His half-brother Enlil, who sought to keep humanity at the lave of dim-bulbed slaves, opposed him. Ea and Enlil have played out their conflict since the beginning of time and continue to play it out today. Ea represents the forces of Tara, of enlightenment, of compassion, of advancing the human race even to the level of the gods. Enlil represents the forces of terror, keeping humanity at the level of slaves and sex objects, keeping them at war with one another. Tip is like southern France, and people that believe in reincarnation go to Rennes-le-Château, they go to the Languedoc region, they visit other places in the Cathar country, and they have vivid memories of what's happening there. Arthur Guerdon was one who wrote a fantastic book about the reincarnating Cathars. And it's important that we follow their story because, one, it gives us a true perspective on the original religion, not only of Jesus, but also provides important keys to understanding how the conflict originated by Ea and Enlil still plays out in our modern world. The difference between the two religions is even encoded in the word Catharic and Catholic. Catholic has the root element ol, al, which means all, quest to be a universal religion. In Egyptian, ar means to create, to form, to fashion, as in Cathar. It is the root for Ari, the creative God. Arian means made by the lady of the house, who is Eve, also known as Ninharzag, Isis, Hathor, Mari, Mary, the goddess of love, the goddess of Amor, the goddess of the light. Hathor in Egypt was the daughter of Re, the light, the sun god, and it was at times known as the Eye of Re, and identified as an avenging deity in the form of a lion called Sekhmet. And here we are back to the Ilion, the light people, the people of An. She was called the Mistress of Heaven and Lady of the Sycamore. Her hieroglyph contains the letter G right here, which the Egyptians tell us means shelter or rope. And again, when we take this symbol to our Mayan elders and ask them for illumination, they say, oh yeah, that actually means galaxy. So the lion people, once again, are the people of the galaxy. The rope is the serpent rope, the wormhole. G, according to the Mayans, means love. You know, when you go, oh, gee, oh, love. It also means egg and zero, which is a quantity. But phonetically, none is none. Well, this is important because Joshua, who stole the grapes from the Anunnaki, was called Joshua, son of Nun. Joshua, son of the egg, son of love. He represented the religion of love. Sent out by Re in the form of a large all-seeing eye, Hathor, Eve, Ninharzag, Inanna, Tara's mission is to watch over humankind. And her symbol is the bright blue eye made of lapis, which of course later appeared on the $1 bill, is the symbol for the return of a Christ or Messiah. Her twin sister is named Pallas Athena. This is a fabulous sculpture or statue that appears in the exact duplicate of the Parthenon in Nashville, Tennessee, where I live, and she's gilded here. She's 42 feet tall, the tallest indoor statue in the Western world. She has her pillar or rod of Meru beside her, and beside that is a serpent. She has their serpent there because the Greeks said that they were serpent-born. And this is her being represented in her aspect as the protector of the Greek people, those who are serpent-born. This is Athena once again. This is Jason, of Jason and the Argonauts theme, being spit out from the serpent. Now, when the Greeks say that they're serpent-born, again, those at the Krispy Kreme will tell you that that means they came out of a reptile. Looked at it from the perspective that I'm presenting, Jesus is being spit out of the wormhole. Jason.